Hello and welcome to the Love, Listen, Talk, Repeat podcast. I'm Wendy Capewell, your podcast host, as well as being a counsellor and psychotherapist, author and speaker. In each of these podcast episodes, I'll be joined by various guests, sharing their expertise and experiences on different subjects. So let's get on with this week's show.
My guest today is Tania Lopez, and she's a hypnotherapist. She works with mums who are struggling with their children's behaviour. And I reckon there are lots of mums out there this is going to resound with when they're struggling with that. Tania, come and talk to the audience and tell everyone more about you and what you do.
Okay, thank you for having me on, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be here. So yes, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and my specialism, if you like, is parenting. So I work with mums who are struggling with their children's behaviour, and I help them to create peace and harmony in their home. So my background is that I've worked with parents for about 20 years. I've worked with families for about 20 years. I'm also a qualified teacher and I'm a qualified counsellor. And really the kind of parenting that I do, it's compassionate and conscious parenting. And that's really what I like to talk about, and that's what I like to work with families with. So yeah, that's the kind of area that I work in.
So tell me more about this compassionate part, first of all.
Okay, so compassionate parenting, to me, it's like all around compassion. So yes, it is to do with how we interact with children. How are we talking to them? Are we keeping their needs in mind? But also importantly, I think it's about how does someone as a parent think about themselves? Are they being compassionate towards themselves? Or are they having all these different thoughts about, I'm failing as a parent, I'm not doing a good enough job, having emotions like shame and guilt. So all of these are quite big things for people to grapple with. So that's really a big part of compassionate parenting is, are you compassionate towards yourself? What's your inner dialogue like? And if it's not compassionate, what is it?
Yes, and I can identify with that. My girls have grown up now, but I remember, unfortunately, my relationship with their dad broke up when they were 11 and 13. So I was a single mum from then on, and I'd had this guilt hanging around me from the time they were born. I think, I would say, I'm sure that mums, once the placenta's delivered, I'm sure there's a great big package of guilt that comes with it.
Yeah.
But it just felt, God, am I going to get this right? And I know a lot of it was my stuff because I didn't feel good enough. I felt that all through my childhood and my adulthood for a long time. So I was carrying that all around with me. So I had to try and do my best, and then trying to do my best and better as a single mom. Wow, that was such a double whammy.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. And I think that's why I use the hypnotherapy part, because that's really to deal with our childhood stuff that we're bringing into all our relationships, and especially our relationship with children. That's when our childhood stuff can really kind of show itself in the mirrors that are children.
Yeah.
So that's where the hypnotherapy really comes in. And just to go back to compassionate parenting, it's also about how parents view other parents. Because sometimes as parents, we can be quite judgmental about parents, and we don't always know what's going on for that person. Yes, they're parenting in a very different way to us. And who's to say what's right or wrong, so it's kind of just, can we hold a compassionate space for other parents? And I think because it does take a village to raise a child, compassionate parenting is also about how do other people view parents and children. So other people like friends, neighbors, extended family, teachers, do they hold a compassionate space for parents and children? Because sometimes I feel, parents are blamed for everything. So that to me is compassionate parenting. It's not just about being compassionate towards your child. It's, kind of a holistic package of compassion. And can we create that? Able to create this village of compassion.
And that's quite a tall order in communities.
It is a tall order, yeah. It is. And I suppose that's what I am really interested in is, I suppose one of the things about parenting is everyone has an opinion on it. Even if you're not a parent yourself, you will have an opinion on it. And that's because we've all had the experience of being parented. Even if we grew up without parents, we still have the experience of being parented. And it's quite interesting, whether you're a parent who's present or a parent who's been absent, they both equally have an impact on children. So yeah, parenting is a funny area that everyone has some kind of opinion on it. And we're very binary. It's always good parenting or a bad parent. It's always good child, bad child, good child, naughty child. It's very kind of either or. We don't see like the richness in everything that's happening. And I suppose that's where the conscious parenting comes in as well. So the conscious parenting, I'll just talk a little bit about that if that's okay.
Yeah,
so
I was going to go on to that because that's another part, isn't it?
And it kind of it's combined, if you like. So I kind of see three types of consciousness. And the first is unconscious parenting, is where we're not really aware of our past experiences, our past triggers that are impacting on the way we parent. And from if we're quite unaware, it's very hard to make changes. And then the second type that I see is self-conscious parenting. And this is where we're very aware of other people's judgments about us, especially when we're out in public, and we feel that everybody has an opinion on us based on how our children are behaving. And what can happen with self-conscious parenting is that we abandon ourselves. We try and please everyone else. So we try and parent in the hope that people will think we're in control or that we're good parents. So we'll change what we're doing when we're out in public because we don't want people to form an opinion based on how our children are behaving. And in that moment of feeling self-conscious, we also abandon our children because we don't see what their needs are at that moment because we're so worried about someone thinking badly of us, even a complete stranger. We want them to think well of us. And then the third type is the conscious parenting. And I guess with the conscious parenting, it's where it's not about getting it right and it's not about being a perfect parent. It's just about being aware of how am I parenting right now? Are my past triggers, my past experiences, kind of interfering in this relationship I have with my child? Am I parenting the child in front of me? Or am I wanting the child to be a certain way based on my past experiences? So conscious parenting is about kind of acknowledging, my past is kind of impacting on the way that I parent. And this is the place where we can make changes. This is the place where we can change intergenerational patterns that maybe are not going to serve the future generation. So, so conscious parenting, I feel, is where we can make some really positive changes if we're up for it.
Yes. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about that when I, going back to with my own and thinking, although I was trying to, all of those three came into it, I have to say, all three. Yeah. And it would be, you could say the unconscious parenting would suddenly just come in without realizing it. I think the classic is, I always said to my girls, there are things, my mother used to say this to me and I don't ever want to say it to you. And when they were older, they went, "You did, Mum." And that's the unconscious. Because, you just get in I don't know whether you're upset or there's a problem going on or you're stressed, but those words just come out because that's what were imprinted in our brain. And it's really odd, isn't it, how that whole thing, you've got that conscious parenting, you're right, the other part is, well, I didn't want to be like my parents. Yeah, that was it. I remember what didn't work for me. And I think as I've got older and, investigated more about myself, I found there were more and more things that have come up. Yeah, and I can recognize them, and I can, say, okay, I can justify them. Well, my parents weren't the best parents in the world, but they had their own issues, and it was a social period. You can put it in a certain time frame, and you can put it in all kinds of ways, and I think that's quite valuable. And how they were parented, because you say it's generational. And then you've got what do people think about me, including what my parents might think about me, or my in-laws might think about me, or strangers might think about me. Have a toddler screaming in a shop. People will think I'm a really, really bad parent. And so we've got all of that going on as well. And then, as you say, there's time to do it the right way and be there. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, that got so muddled up, Tania. I had no one to kind of talk me through it. But oh my goodness, yeah, it was very backwards and forwards. And then we bring into it the emotional part, isn't it? You something hits us, we feel hurt, we feel that emotional pull, and it all adds to the wonderful mix.
I think you're right. It's not about just being a conscious parent and that being the right way. I think it's going to be a dance throughout life where we go from being unconscious, because for us to become conscious, there's got to be some awareness, and for the awareness to come up, we've got to be unconscious first of all. So I think it's going to be a constant dance between being unconscious, self-conscious, and conscious, and that's just going to be the dance in life, I think. With all our relationships, not just with parenting. And more things, like you said, as you get older, more and more things are unearthed. And then you think, oh, this is a new thing that I'm becoming aware of. And that will then go on to impact relationships in a different way. And I think, like you were saying, a lot of people say, I don't want to parent the way my parents parented. And the way our parents parented us, it's not to blame them. They were doing the best that they were doing at the time, but that doesn't take away that it still has an impact on us. And when things are going well, it can be very easy to be a conscious parent. It's when things are difficult that we don't have a blueprint for doing things consciously when when we're faced with a challenge, because nobody taught us. We were never given a roadmap for dealing with that. So we've got to have to navigate this in our own way, and it's going to be this dance. And it's tricky, and it's not to say that conscious parenting is the only way to do it. It's just to be aware that there's all these different things going on. And when you're being self-conscious, I just think it's our natural instinct when we're in public and we have our stress response come up, and we have the fight, flight, and freeze responses that come up. So when we're in a shop and your child's having a tantrum, of course, you might go into fight mode. You might shout and threaten or bribe your child, anything to stop the behavior. Or you might go into flight mode where you think, oh my God, this is just too embarrassing. I need to leave the store. And you just run out of the shop. Or you might freeze and just feel so confused and not know how to deal with what's going on right now. And we are really self-conscious. Being in public, it's very embarrassing because, like I was saying before, everyone has an opinion on parenting. But really, it's our own inner dialogue that's kicking in and saying, everyone's watching you. There's like a pressure cooker, a pressure effect. I need to get this right. I need to do the right thing. And it's so confusing when we're constantly having this thing about being right, or I'm either doing it right or doing it wrong. And then that's where all the feelings of shame and guilt begin.
Absolutely. I can still remember being at the school gate with the other mums, and they'd all been comparing about my child so advanced or my child doing this. And I used to think, I don't want to play this game. I couldn't wait until they were old enough to get themselves back from school on their own, or, you know, without me, because I didn't want to get involved in that game. It just brought up so much of those feelings, doesn't it? You know, my child is perfect. My child is this, my child. And you think, it just makes us feel more guilty and more inadequate. And I think all of those parents, all those mums were actually trying to reassure themselves that they were doing it right. But you can't see that when you're a mum and thinking, oh, but am I doing it right? Yeah.
So I suppose that's competition coming in as well. And it really takes us away from any kind of consciousness or compassion, because everybody's in survival mode. And so, you're right. The people are seeking reassurance because they're like, am I getting it right? Am I okay? Am I surviving? Am my kids doing okay? If my kids are doing okay, then maybe I'm doing okay. So we're all looking to the external for validation rather than going, okay, internally, what's going on for me? What can I check myself in? Can I check in what's going on for me, and then deal with me first before trying to make the external look? I suppose that's the thing, that we all wanted to look good, even if it doesn't feel good inside. And
yes, it's faking it, isn't it? And we see it so much on social media, don't we? You know, the happy families and the wonderful kids, how talented they are, or how beautiful they are, or even, you know, the whole family thing, you know, oh, my husband is so wonderful because look what he did. And you think, what's it doing? It's all fake, because if you're that happy, why do you need to advertise it? But it doesn't help those mums who are parents who are really struggling, because that just makes them feel more and more inadequate.
And I think that's part of being conscious as well. It's looking at what are you watching? So I was talking about the internal dialogue before, but also externally, what are you allowing in? So how much news are you watching? How much social media are you consuming? And really notice when you're watching the news, when you're reading things on Facebook or Instagram, how does it make you feel? And then just become really aware of your feelings. And if those things don't make you feel good, maybe it's time to reduce the amount spent on it. And I know it can be hard, because we always want to know what's going on for the people. But really noticing, and that is part of being conscious, is does it serve me, or does it not serve me? If it makes me feel bad, then it's not serving me. And it's
Definitely.
So I do think that's a big part of both compassion and consciousness, is as well as that inner dialogue, what are we allowing externally? Who are we spending time with? Are they, like you've probably heard that, people can be drains or radiators. Are we spending our time with people who drain
definitely.
us? Are we spending time with people who, we feel warm and good when we're in their company? So it's all of that kind of thing as well.
Such good advice there, because I think that really explains it really well. You know, that compassion, we all need to feel compassion for ourselves and others. I think one of my mantras, of which I have many, but is don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Because we don't know what's going on for that person. And I guess with what I do, I work with the adults, but it's, you just don't know until you talk to someone what's going on. You can dismiss somebody and say, oh, they're bad, or they're, I don't know, whatever their problem is. But actually, what is going on for them? Quite often, I don't know until I ask them. And even so, even when I know what's going on for them, I can't possibly truly understand what it's like for them. So yeah, there's something very valid in that compassion.
Yeah. And you know what you've just said about don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. And I feel a lot of people have walked many, many miles in their own shoes and they're so judgmental about themselves. So actually, don't judge yourself. You know the ride that you've had, and some of it's been rough. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yes, there are clients I've worked with who they label themselves. Maybe they've been in a toxic family. But because they were considered to be much younger than the others, they were told, well, you got it easy.
Yeah.
But they didn't. The siblings should say, well, it wasn't as bad for you as it was for us. Or they'll make judgments about, oh, you're just so dipsy. Or all of those, you're stupid. All those things follow children. And then they end up by saying, well, yeah, but I'm not organized, or I'm not clever, or I'm stupid, or I can't maintain information, or there's so much that we label ourselves with because maybe that's what our parents told us, or our siblings told us, or our peers at school. If the other kids were teasing, you end up feeling that is what you're like.
And that's the problem with labels, isn't it? Labels are, they keep you so stuck. And so when you're reduced to a label, you can't see all the other things. So I know like a lot of parents will say, well, I was always like the shy one, the quiet one. So I was always told you're the quiet, you're the one who doesn't speak up very much. And it's followed them into adulthood. And by labeling somebody as, I don't know, introvert, quiet, shy, you miss all the other things that, they're a great listener, that they contribute to the family in so many other ways, that they have all these other things that we're not seeing, because we're just seeing this label, shy, introvert, quiet. So you miss so much through labels. And the labels are, either good or bad. And labels generally are not very
there's nothing in between.
Yeah, and labels generally, that they're not very helpful at all. Even what might appear to be a good label, calling somebody clever or good, it never actually serves the child or the adult.
Because they've got something they feel they have to live up to that they're not, or they feel they're not.
Yeah.
You're the bright one, you'll do well, you'll go to uni. And there's this child feeling there's so much pressure put on them. Yeah.
And maybe the bright one might feel like they're not fun. And then when you're feeling all this pressure to be bright, how can it be fun? So then you think, okay, so what I'm good at is academic. I'm not so good at, I don't know, socializing or making friends or being the funny one. So we take away so much from anyone when we label them. We reduce them to one.
I so agree. Yes, and they carry it around. That's me. That defines me because, and that is really sad because we're multifaceted.
Have we got time to talk about one? Have you got time to talk about a label that I was given as a child and how it affected me?
I'd love you to share it. Yes,
so one of the
please
things I was told was that I was clumsy, and I don't know whether I used to fall over more than other children. It felt like it. And I was told I was clumsy so many times that by the time I was 7 or 8, nobody had to tell me I was clumsy. I used to go around saying I'm clumsy. And this followed me right into my 20s and mid-20s. I used to constantly trip up. If I walked into a room, I would almost picture myself tripping up, and then I would trip up. And I also had complete strangers telling me I was clumsy. And it used to really, really hurt. And it was someone that said to me once, why do you always say that you're clumsy? You're the only person who says you're clumsy. And I remember saying something like, well, I was always told I was clumsy, and it's true, I am. And he said, well, none of those people say, they're not around anymore. They don't say that kind of thing. Only you're saying it. And it really made me think. And I thought, next time I bang myself or I trip up, I'm just going to say it's an accident. And I don't know, you know, like our brains are just so amazing. And it's like I rewired my brain. And so every time I did bang myself into something or tripped up or fell over, I just said, it's just an accident. It happens to other people. I'm not alone in this experience. And then I just remember a year later looking back, and I don't know how long it took for my brain to be rewired, but I just remember not having any bruises or not being able to remember the last time I tripped up. And just feeling really amazed that, you know, for 25, 26 years, I'd carried this label of being clumsy. And as an adult, feeling really embarrassed every time I tripped up or fell over. And then suddenly that was no longer part of my behaviors, if you like. And then I realized that if somebody was to tell me that I was clumsy, I wouldn't recognize it as it being me. I'd probably have thought, who are you talking about? And it wouldn't have hurt me either. So if anybody was to say to me now, Tania, you're so clumsy, it wouldn't affect me. It's like it would just wash over me. Whereas before, it used to really hurt me when even strangers would say, you know, something like, gosh, you're clumsy. And I'd be like, how do you know me? You're a complete stranger.
Yeah.
So that's how labels can really impact. And I suppose the beauty of it is you can change things.
Definitely. That's what I love so much. You're right. It is. We label ourselves, we tell ourselves we can't do things, or we tell ourselves, as you say, that we're stupid or clumsy or gypsy or whatever it is. And you just end up believing it.
Yeah.
You just believe, well, I am. Yeah, that's it. And just a short story about me is as a child, when I was 4, I had polio. And I was lucky, I recovered. It was amazing. I'm one of the lucky ones. But for so many years afterwards, I believed I wasn't very strong. That I wasn't the same as others. Now, to a degree, that was right for a while because my muscles have been affected on my right side. I needed physiotherapy for several months. But I believed I wasn't. And it carried on until I had my first child. And then I thought, but I've just had a perfectly okay pregnancy. I've had a normal delivery. I've got a normal child. Why the heck am I wearing this still? Because unconsciously I was carrying it around. Oh, I'm not really strong. I'm not. But it is all of that. You're so right. That until we bring that unconscious into our conscious, we're never going to actually, well, we don't have the opportunities. It's got to be in our awareness for us to make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, Tania, I think we could talk for ages. What would you suggest one person, you know, that people could take away with them? One thing that you could suggest people take and maybe start working on themselves or thinking about?
So if there's a behavior in your child that really triggers you, really have a look inside. Is it that this child is behaving, if you like, badly, or are they just behaving like a child? And are you being triggered because of your stuff internally? And also, when a child does display behaviors that you don't like, try and look beyond the behavior. Is the behavior trying to communicate something to you? Is it something about what this child needs? And if you can meet that need in maybe a different way, then there would be no need for this child to behave in the way that they're behaving. So one is look internally. Is this your stuff?
Yeah. And
if the behavior is something that you don't like, look beyond it. Does it say something about what your child needs? So look to your own needs. What do you need? What does your child need? And then try and meet that need.
great advice. So what's one way that people can get in touch with you? I'll put all the details, your details in the show notes, but one easy way that people can get in touch with you, Tania.
Go to my website, which is www.fullcirclehypnotherapy.co.uk. And there's a contact form, so you can contact me on there.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
So there's a contact form, so people can use that to contact me and they can read up about what I'm doing. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for today. I really learnt different things, found it interesting, and I hope listeners have too. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me on.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear from you and what you think, so do get in touch. If you'd like to learn more about me, how I help people who are struggling with issues relating to their personal life or relationships, as well as finding out how you can work with me, go to my website, www.wendykatewell.co.uk, where you can find my contact details and book a free call with me. You really don't have to struggle alone. Until next time, take care. Bye.